soul isn't touched by bad thoughts in the mind. When random thoughts come during meditation, take no note of them, be the witness. Nature moves and changes, unfolding veil after veil, while the witness sings old rings in knowledge. The witness sings old remains a moon, nothing acts on the Atman. Our real nature is all this. Identify with Maya and she has control, but let go of it and be the witness. Identify with the witness, be the witness of your mind. Who enjoys the show the most, the latest or the audience. Therefore be the witness and enjoy the play.
Om Asato Ma Sadagamaya Tamaso Homaham Jyoti Gamaya Mrityormam Amritam Gamaya Avir Maidhi Rudra Yate Dakshinam Mukha Te Namaham Pahinityam. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. And reach us through and through ourselves. And evermore protect us from ignorance by thy sweet, compassionate face. So my subject this morning is the witness consciousness. Consciousness is the essence of the principle of subjectivity. Subjectivity is our self. And we're interested in self-knowledge. And in order to know ourselves, we need to inquire into the nature of consciousness. It's a common experience that we pass through three states of mind, cycle through those three states in the course of a day: waking, dream, and deep sleep. In all of those, we have a consciousness. You may question as to whether we're conscious or aware in deep sleep. But in fact, when we wake up, we say, I slept well, and I knew nothing. So at least there's some awareness of something even in that state. But the Upanishads speak of a fourth state of consciousness, which is the background of all these three, and it's called the Sakshi, the witness consciousness. Swami Shivananda of Rishikesh gives a good parable. One day, Ram Das was sitting for meditation in the temple. He was seated quietly at the back of the temple doing japa. And time passed, and Mr. Joshi came in and sat down somewhere in front of him, and he also settled down and began to do japa. Soon after that, Mr. Banerjee came in. He sat down next to Mr. Joshi and was soon lost in the repetition of God's name. Well, so it was just silence for about an hour. And then Mr. Banerjee turned to Joshi and said, when are you going to pay me back the 20 rupees you owe me? And, well, Joshi said, what? I don't owe you any money. Like this, they began to converse back and forth. Don't you remember this on this is such and such a day? Well, this mild discussion soon escalated into an argument. Joshi said some harsh words. They both stood up, and they were about to come to blows when some devotees called the security guard. And he came over. What's going on here? What's happening here? Can someone explain what's going on? Is there a witness to this incident? Oh, yes, there is. Ram Das. So he went and questioned Ram Das, who related the whole story to him. So we're talking here about 3 states of mind. And then we're going to be talking about a 4th state, which is mentioned in the Upanishads. It's not a state of mind. It's just, we could call it pure consciousness. It's discussed in great detail. It's called the 4th. And the Sanskrit word there is turiya. And it's discussed in detail in the Mandukya Upanishad, described in the 7th verse. And in that Upanishad, you know, it analyzes in great detail the great mantra, the name of God, Om. And Om, Ah, U, Ma are the 3 syllables of the Om, which are analyzed and which correspond to the waking, the dream, and the deep sleep state in the individual. But then there's silence. At the end is the silence. And that is called the 4th state. The 4th. Why is it called the 4th? Well, you got 1, 2, 3. And if you're living there and you have a sacred cows there, or you have an elephant, if you have 3, you want to have 4, because he has 4 feet. So therefore, they're going to give you a 4, but they're going to tell you that it's not a 4th state of mind. Rather, it's just pure consciousness. And the turiya, the 4th, it's It's just synonymous with the Atman, that is our true self, our true nature. It's synonymous with Brahman, the universal consciousness. The subject of the Turiya is the Sakshi, the witness. The Sakshi is an intuitive, superconscious, direct, immediate knower of the self. It's the reference of the term when we say the Atman is self-luminous. The reference of the word self is the Sakshi, pure consciousness, the Atman. When we use a term like Atma Jnana, self-knowledge, the self that it refers to is the Sakshi, the witness, which is beyond the three states of mind and which illumines all three. This Sakshi is what Ramana Maharshi calls the eye of the eye. It's the eye, the reference of the word eye. When Jehovah on Moses would question Jehovah, "What is your name?" He said, "I am that I am." That's the eye of the witness consciousness. It's the eye of the speaker of the Nirvana Shatkam, which you're probably familiar, famous stotram there of six verses, where the speaker, Brahmagyani, saying, "I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I am Satchidananda, Shivoham, Shivoham. I am Shiva." He's referring there, the I there is referring to Satchidananda. That means to our true self, that is the Atman, pure consciousness. We read about in the Upanishads, there are Mahavakyas. One of the Mahavakyas is Aham Brahmasmi. What does that Aham refer to? Not to our ego. It refers to the witness consciousness that transcends the three states of mind, which is the source of our consciousness, which is the center of our being. This witness consciousness is the it's the mysterious, the reference there of the mysterious image in Ralph Waldo Emerson, where he speaks of the transparent eyeball in Transcendentalism. Maybe we say that's the witness consciousness. Maybe the best image of that consciousness is the sun. The sun shines above. It illumines everything in the world. It gives us heat. It gives us light. And all the energy of the world and nature comes from the light of the sun. The sun shines. He's like the witness of the universe, the knower, the source of light. That's what we can think of the Atman, our true nature. A source, it's a light source. Now this word, Sakshi, which is translated here as a witness, it's a term of art in Advaita Vedanta, and it refers particularly to that, the final, where the buck stops here level, that is the ultimate source of light and consciousness. And it always refers here to that perfect direct, immediate knower. But the light of consciousness cascades downward. It cascades downward into, by the process of superimposition. And it shows up in the minds of an enlightened soul or an advanced spiritual aspirant as a detached, disinterested, objective awareness. And so we can speak of the witness consciousness as referring also to that detached awareness. It's in this sense that we can say that Mr. Ram Dass was a witness of the incident in the temple. And it's in this sense that we can say that a person who observed a crime can serve as a witness in the court without, we can call him a witness, without committing ourselves to any kind of technical, superconscious, ultimate knower. So let's look here at the idea of the witness consciousness. We can begin here with the greatest, well, the father of all philosophy. His name was Kapila Rishi. He was the first philosopher in the history of mankind who formulated a system which is coherent and living to this day. And it's called the Sankhya philosophy. Swami Vedarupananda gave at least 3 major lectures on the subject, because this philosophy, although it predates the formulation of Vedanta and the Vedanta Sutras, it's very helpful for us to, it's incorporated into the Advaita Vedanta, the whole philosophical system, with some modifications, but it's very helpful for us as an introduction and as a beginning to understand some fundamental principles of this teaching. Now, the Sankhya philosophy is a dualistic system, unlike Vedanta, which is all about monism and Dvaita. But that's okay. In this system, everything in the world is analyzed into 25 cosmic principles. And just to make it easy for us, we can boil it down to 2. There's nature and there's consciousness. That's it. Prakriti and Purusha. The object and the subject. And this is discriminative wisdom. This is the wisdom of the Sankhya philosophy. That there is a difference between the subject and the object. The subject is called Prakriti. Prakriti just means nature, but it's nature with a capital N. It doesn't mean a national parks or the woods in the wilderness. Rather, it's referring to the whole cosmos, the entire universe, the gross, the subtle, and the causal, everything together. In the macrocosm, it refers to the stars and the sun, the moon, and the evolution of the planets and the elements. In the microcosm, it refers to our own body and to our own vital energies and to our own mind and our own ego and our own intelligence. All of this is included in nature That is, it's all matter. It's all matter and energy. In the beginning of creation, there were two things, prana and akasha. And out of prana and akasha came all that we call nature. Everything that we call an object in our awareness is assigned to this category of nature. Nature is ever in flux, ever in change. The process of evolution. Sankhya discusses also the process of involution, the whole cycle. It goes around involution, evolution. And around it goes in the great cosmic cycle of constant change. If we were to take this Prakriti only, without the Purusha, it would be described by what in Western philosophy is called process metaphysics. That means everything is in flux. Everything is in constant change. There's no, well, that poses problems for us if we're interested in defining what is the identity of anything. That there is nothing with an identity. There is no inventory in the market. You see, there's only flux. Everything is in change, and another characteristic of this nature is inert. That is, it has no inherent consciousness. This is never talking about Sankhya philosophy. It has no inherent consciousness. It has no life. It has no initiative power. All of these things it borrows from the Purusha, the principle of consciousness and awareness. It's the presence of the Purusha that enables nature to begin to move. Just like the iron filings in the presence of a magnet will begin to move and form shapes and patterns. And just like workers maybe in an office who are doing nothing, but when the boss appears at the door and they feel his presence, then they all become very busy. And the stage show and the melodrama on the stage, when the audience is seated, then the show begins. So that's it begins. It relies on the presence of the Purusha. This is nature. The one category characterized by the Lord Buddha as all is suffering, all is transient, and all is empty. Now, over and apart from this principle of Prakriti is the Purusha. The Purusha is our soul, it's our self. It's the principle of consciousness and awareness. The Purusha the Purusha is about being. The Purusha, we could say, is a being. It's not about becoming. It's a thing in itself. It's never changing. It always is what it is. It never changes. It's like the movie screen in a movie theater. All of the movies playing out with all of the action and the dialogue. The screen remains immovable. It's unchanged. That is the witness consciousness. The witness consciousness is eternal. It's immortal. Nothing is in Prakriti, in nature, everything is transient. Nothing is it not there. There is no thing in itself. There is no. Everything is in flux. Whereas the Purusha is changeless, immortal, eternal. That is the conscious principle within us, our true self. The Purusha is independent. Unlike Prakriti, nature is dependent on consciousness. The object is dependent on the subject. But the subject, that is the Purusha, that is the conscious principle, is independent of nature. So this is the way the Sankhya philosophy classifies these two categories. And we can think of the Purusha maybe as we can't do better than to think of it with the analogy of a light. And we think of a lamp on a table, and maybe someone comes along and reads the Bible by that lamp. Another person comes along later on and maybe forges a check by that same light of that same lamp. But the lamp remains unchanged. The lamp remains unmoved. It illumines both. We could call it like the detached witness consciousness. It's like the light. In the Bhagavad Gita, we're given that example of a model for our meditation. A candle burning in a windless place. And the candle burns. That is the candle is there and it shines. It's not caught up in the burning of the wick. It just shines on and on. The candle shines and illumines everything in the room, just as our consciousness illumines everything where we look and see. And as the wax melts, the wax melts away like our thoughts and our feelings. But the light of the candle continues to shine. Do you think it ever gets tired of waiting? It just waits. It's just a presence that enables everything to happen. So we're talking about the subject, the principle of subjectivity, and the principle of objectivity. In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 13th chapter, is entitled, it's all about the kshetra and the kshetragya, the field and the knower of the field. That's the imagery. There are two things. They say there is the field and there is the knower of the field. The field is just the principle of objectivity. It's the phenomenal field of all that we perceive and know of the world. We can think of it metaphorically like the great battlefield of Kurukshetra, where Arjuna and the chariot and Krishna they're on that battlefield. There's all the turmoil of world events. They're happening on this field. Similarly, we could think of a farmer who's out and sows seeds in a field. That field would be like our body, just like the farmer. We also sow the seeds of our karma, which later on we harvest the fruits. And over and apart from the field, there is the knower of the field. That is our true self, the consciousness within us, our soul, the knower, the observer, albeit an indirect knower. Is still, the ideal here is that it is a detached, objective, impartial knower. That's the ideal image that observes things that happen in life, all the pleasures and pains, but remains constant, really, and unchanged. That's the light of consciousness, remains constant. And so the field, there is the field, and there is the knower of the field. And what is the relation between the two? Well, the relation between the two is one of difference. There's a difference between the subject and the object. They're separate. That's the lesson. The lesson here is that there is a separation. And the knowledge of this separateness it's this knowledge that will liberate us from the bounds of our actions and the cycle of the vicious circle, karma, and the round of birth and death that we call samsara. So the secret here is to know the difference, to have discriminative wisdom. Discriminative wisdom means that we have that there's a difference between, they're separate. The subject is separate from the object. The spirit is different from the flesh. The spirit is different from the body, from the mind, and from the ego, and from our own intelligence. All of this is nature. Our true self is the witness consciousness. Let me give you an analogy from the Upanishads, both in the Shvetashvatara Upanishad, and it also appears in the 5th chapter of the Mundaka Upanishad. Visualize a forest. You're walking through the forest, and there's the great trees, sun is shining, and there you see a tree, and there are two birds that are perched on the same tree. They seem to be friends. They're very similar, but one is perched on the highest branch, and the other is perched on a lower branch. And the bird on the lower branch is hopping around, eating the sweet and the bitter fruits. And meanwhile, the higher bird looks on without eating. And the lower bird hops around, he gets a sweet fruit, and looks for more, it gets a particularly bitter fruit. It is disgusted, stops, turns, looks up, sees that higher bird in all his majesty, calm, detached. And he says, yeah, I'd like to be like that. He hops up a branch, but then gets distracted by the fruits again, and jumps and hops to one to the other, gets a particularly bitter fruit, looks up, sees that higher bird, gets inspired, takes another jump up. And like this, time passes. And soon that lower bird has hopped way, way up the tree. And finally, when he looks up for the last time, he just makes a few quick jumps up to the top. And what we thought looked like two birds there, there was only one bird all along. And you know how sometime if you're walking through a forest, and maybe there's a gentle breeze that's blowing through the limbs and the branches of the trees, and the shadows of the sun are falling on the branches, and maybe there's a play of shadows, creates illusions. So where there appeared to be two birds, there's really only one. Well, that's going beyond our theme this morning. That's giving you a Vedantic interpretation. There's the two birds. And just as we ourselves, we have, as it were, in our own phenomenology, we just look within ourselves, we have to admit that we have, as it were, two selves within us. There's the lower self, and there is our ideal self, the vision that we have. Psychologists, maybe our ideal self, the imago, our ideal self, our perfect self, our soul, all that we could possibly be, our perfect. That's a Platonic world of Platonic world of universals. Swamiji says there, quotes that from somewhere, and there is a perfect you. Somewhere there is a perfect you that exists. And that would be like the higher bird. The lower bird, let's look here at what the significance of these two birds. The lower bird, of course, is our personal self, our everyday walking around self that we would call our ego, and that's identified with the body and with the mind. That's called the Jivatman, the living Atman. That is the bound soul, and is experiencing life and going through, we call it the lower bird, because it exists, we could say, in a spectrum and a scale of vibrational levels of cosmic spiritual consciousness. It's down at a lower level. The higher bird is at a much higher level of vibration. The lower bird is called lower because it's what Sri Ramakrishna would call the worldly mind. The worldly mind is the mind which is earthbound, sense-bound, preoccupied with sense pleasures, and world sense objects, worldly pleasures, self-gratification, ego gratification. That's the worldly mind. As spiritual aspirants, that's our mind that we're trying to transcend, to rise above that. And we can see in our own behavior and our own awareness, we're like that lower bird, hopping from one thing to another. Our attention is scattered, our minds are scattered, our attention is scattered. Meanwhile, the higher bird symbolizes our higher self, our true self, that is the Atman. But we can't think about the Atman because it's non-dual and it's beyond our conceptual awareness. Therefore, the highest conception that we can have of ultimate truth about the world or about ourselves, the highest conception that we can have would be that of a perfect man, of an incarnation of God, or of a saint or of a sage who has realized this truth and who lives, who is on the earth and who walks and talks, but who knows, who has this divine knowledge which changes everything. And so this is why Sri Arjuna asks in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, he hears about this Atman, that is about the perfect divine self. And he asks Sri Krishna the famous question, how does he sit? How does he walk? What does he say? What does he look like? Arjuna wants to visualize this ideal. And so he gets the description there, which you can read in chapter 2, of the man of steady wisdom. This is how we can envision our true nature. The man of steady wisdom is, when he is alone, he lives absorbed within himself. He finds his happiness within. He finds his joy within. When he is at work in the world, he puts his whole consciousness and attention on the work at hand, and yet he is detached from the fruits of the action. Sri Swami Vedarupananda puts it very simply. That is, he has the power of attachment. That man alone will have the power, get the best out of life, who, having the power to attach himself fully to the action, heart and soul, put his whole consciousness on one point of work at hand, reserves also to himself the power to detach when he should do so. That's the saint, that's the sage. While he works and when he's in the company of other humankind, he naturally feels empathy, sympathy, compassion, love. Why? Well, because if a human being is selfless and has removed ignorance from his mind, then it is the Atman. Then that Atman is self-luminous. It will shine forth, and he will be a saint. So you don't have to work hard to be a saint after you've removed the ego and removed self-ignorance. Then you are a saint, and everything you do, you'll be embodiment of all divine qualities. So that's the higher bird. That's our ideal. And I don't know what time is it. I think we have some time. Okay. All right, then let me give you another image that will, in our theme here. Also about a bird. There was this is a parable of Sri Ramakrishna. So we can't do better than kind of help us to understand these fundamental principles by reference to those teachings. There was a bird who lived on a seaside village, and she flew around during the day, meeting her friends, perched on different trees, One day, late in the evening, she flew around. There's a harbor. The sailing ships were anchored there. And she was tired, and she went and perched on the main mast of a sailing ship. And that night, she fell asleep. And that night, that ship weighed anchor and sailed out to sea. And so the very next morning, when she awoke, she looked around. She was completely disoriented and shocked. She didn't know where she was. She was lost. And so what to think? She began to fly to the east. And she flew and flew. And after an hour, she was getting tired. And thought, there's no land in this direction. I better return to the mast of the ship. And so she finally returned to the mast of the ship, rested there. It was mid-morning. But then she took off again, flying to the south. And she flew and flew, looking down, saw those glassy waters of the ocean, water everywhere, the sharks circling around. Finally began to get tired. She thought, there's no land in this direction either. And so she returned again to that main mast of the ship, and there she rested. In the early afternoon, she flew to the north. She flew and flew until it got colder and colder. She thought, I better return. There's no land in this direction either. She rested, and again, the late afternoon, she set off, flew to the west. She flew and flew. Now the sun is setting. They're getting darker and darker. Didn't see any land there either. So finally returned, exhausted, to the ship's main mast. And there she just perched and fell asleep. And the next morning she woke. She looked around. And she was still lost. But her spirits were high. You know, sometimes when you don't get what you want, you just become aware of your own being. How good it is just to be alive, to be where you are, and to be here now and to be safe here now. And you realize that life is not about the destination, but it's about the journey. And so she had a great journey ahead of her. And so she lived in high spirits and looked to a great adventure ahead. So I always think about that bird as an example, perched high up on that ship's mast, the witness of the ocean, the sun and the great ship, sailing ship below her, and all the crew at work, sailing off for a new adventure. So there we have some examples of the discriminative wisdom, that is of the Sakshi, of the witness consciousness, of the Purusha, the observer, the watcher of nature, the knower of the field, and of the bird on the highest branch of the tree in the forest, and on the sailing ship. And all of these together, we get an idea of they're meant as an ideal. It's an ideal. We need to have ideals. That is something which is perfect, something which is beyond our reach, and yet helps to guide our behavior and our decision making. An ideal is something that gives us meaning and it gives us purpose in life. And so this is one ideal given to us by these ancient teachings of philosophy, this ideal of the witness consciousness. Swami? Want me to do the announcements? Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so next week we have Grief Management by Swami Vedarupananda. And during the week we will continue to have some of our classes. The Tuesday afternoon class will not be there, but we'll have the Tuesday evening class, Wednesday evening class, Thursday evening class, and then on Friday we have the Crystal Bowl meditation. So that is the lineup for next week.
Okay. Om Dyo Ho Shantihi Antariksha Ham Shantihi Prithvi Shantihi Apa Shantihi Oshadaya Shantihi Vanaspataya Shantihi Vishwe Deva Shantihi Brahma Shantihi Saravam Shantihi Shantireva Shantihi Same Shantiredhi Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. Om, peace is in heaven, peace is on the earth, peace is in the sky and in the waters. The herbs and plants and trees are full of peace. The gods are peaceful. May this eternal universal peace enter our souls and beings. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us all.